So in addition to Orange County Audubon and all of its sanctuaries, we have the Bashigal Area Association and Meek, and it's right by the Bashigal.
Didn't you
So
want to do
not,
this on the?
okay, I'm sorry, I'm just going uh, to mute you if you joined. So that's me. I don't want to mute. Um, there we go. Um, And so if you're cold, it's a great place to warm up and look at wildlife or hit a restroom if you were, looking at wildlife. That's great. But then there's so many more. As far as like all Audubon societies, there's one in Sullivan County. There's a great birding group, the Edgar A. Mearns Bird Club in Orange County. There are friends groups which help um, protect areas. So the Shwangang Grasslands Friends Group, the Friends of the Wallkill River group. There's a Gifford Pinchot Audubon Society in Pennsylvania. There is a great organization along the D&H Canal. Cudbeckville? No, 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 that was the other one.
Mine is in Summitville.
In Summitville. And so there's just, if you're here, it's probably because you value this area, you value the wildlife. So, I highly recommend look on the web pages of all of these organizations. And yours was named once again?
The Delaware and Hudson Canal Linear Park in Summitville.
Okay, so the Delaware and Hudson Canal Linear Park in Summitville. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful area. I think I've hiked there often. So there's great places if you would like to get out. And winter, believe it or not, is a time to get out. And so I'd like to then do this second presentation in our series. Oh, and if you're in this room, we have the flyers. Feel free to take one of the talks that we'll give this semester on winter wildlife. All right, so so we'll go here. Let me just start. So I made a mistake earlier in my days. I didn't appreciate just how great winter was for looking at wildlife. And so I would just stay home because it was cold and there was snow and there was ice. And I would say, I'll wait till the weather gets warm before I go out in the wild. And it was only then I realized there are so many things. And this is the quick overview. I'm about to get into all of these in greater depth. There's wildlife that you can only see in winter. So if you would, you hope to see, oh, I'd love to see short-eared owls. I'd love to see rough-legged hawks. I'd love to see these birds. The only time is winter. As you pointed out, if I'd like to see bald eagles courting, if I'd like to see them gathering their nest materials, February going into early March, that's the time for it. And so this is a great time of year to look at wildlife. And so what I'd like to do is to do just that. I'd like to just kind of look at we could what we could see in winter. So we'll see some new birds, we'll see some new wildlife, but we also might see things acting a little differently. So robins are still with us, but they're just a little different. Like you may associate robins with they're on my lawn eating worms. That they won't be doing that now. Instead, they'll be in more wooded areas finding the leftover fruits from last autumn. So this is a time to say, oh, there are some birds which are familiar to us. Oh, I'm sorry, I see something in the chat. Okay, good. I don't know, a new chat. Okay, same thoughts. Great. Here they are acting in a new way. Because plants make a lot of fruit in autumn, and there are still fruits available now for birds that eat it, and we'll be meeting a couple of them presently. So here are juniper, quote, fruits. Technically, conifer trees don't make real fruits. Forgive me, I'm just going to shut the door because there's a little work in the And so fruit-eating birds can still find food. And you might find birds that eat insects in summer now relying more on fruit at this time of year. So here's a starling, which I'm sure you know. Here it is doing its warm weather thing. In colder weather, it looks a little different. Plus, it acts different. We see these murmurations that can have thousands and thousands of individuals. So winter's a neat time because even if there are birds that you are familiar with, they may be acting in new ways. All right. So um, buried in this, I think, is the question, which birds do we expect to see? Don't they migrate? I just want to define a term because it will come up again and again, a term called partial migration. This bird has to migrate. It eats bugs, all right? That's like most of its diet. And so obviously, if you're going to eat bugs, you can't be here in um, in winter. However, other things can shift their diet. They can eat bugs, they can eat more plant material, or they could even then look for insects in other places like the crevices of tree bark, etc. And so we have what's called partial migration, where will something go south? Well, it might. All right, so we may find that some animals, they all migrate. So all of these birds will go from their breeding grounds here to their non-breeding grounds here. But other ones, it depends. Like this great blue heron. Why is it here? All right, in December. All right, and I'll show you some pictures of in January as well. These bald eagles, why are they here? Are they the ones from last summer? That's a maybe, especially as climate change gradually warms our planet. And I know you don't feel particularly warm, but last year was the third warmest year on record, and our Januaries are a bit warmer than they used to be. Some birds they can migrate, or they can wait to see if it's a warmer winter, and they might not migrate. Uh, we certainly get migratory birds from Canada. We'll be seeing those. And then also there's the possibility that maybe our birds are in Georgia right now and Quebec's birds are here. So you might say, oh, I see these birds all year round, but it may not be the same birds that you're looking at all year round. So this idea of partial migration is complicated. So do they migrate? It's not a yes or no. Let's say you go out looking for wildlife now, what would you see? Well, I'd like to start with the special ones that you can only see in winter. And, I think the top of a lot of people's list are short-eared owls. One of the reasons we love short-eared owls so much is look at the time of day. They often come out at dusk or even late afternoon. All right, so there are a lot of owls that even if they live near your house, you may never get to see them. But short-eared owls, all right, coming out at dusk and dawn, the term for that is crepuscular. This is a great chance to see them. And this is from our recent walk just a couple of weeks ago, the short-eared owls that we got to see there. And so we had a great time there. If you go, there are two great places in our area to go, the Shawangunk grasslands, although I don't think they've been having as dense a year for short-eared owls this year as they often do. And the Liberty Loop in the Wallkill River National Wildlife Refuge, which is where this video is taken. So there are no bugs anymore, but there are rodents. And you just saw an owl dive after what was probably a vole. So these owls at dusk and during the night fly over the marsh looking for rodents. And there's a harrier hawk that does the same during the day. So if you happen to walk around these areas, I'm sorry, let me just mute someone. If you happen to be walking around, you'll see raptors just flying low to the ground. And I mentioned harrier hawks along with these short-eared owls. They kind of compete in that, the hawks are ending their day. That's a harrier hawk. The males are called gray ghosts because they have a more of a grayish hue. That's a female, so she's not as gray. You can recognize the harrier hawks by the white spot on their tail. So they're together around at dusk, and then you can see them sparring with each other because if they're both hunting, they want to, express their territories. And harriers are a little bigger than the short-eared owls. So you can actually notice, and we saw that on our walk. So this is from our walk 2 weeks ago. All right. So owls were certainly catching rodents. You can see one there. But then the harriers, well, they're thinking, well, that's my rodent. And so then the harriers try to take the rodents away from them. And harriers being a little bit bigger, they are a little better at um, trying to steal rodents than the owls are in reverse. So if it's winter time, a lot of bird watchers say, oh, short-eared owls. I'm definitely going to go to the Shawangunk grasslands. Now, ice and snow, that interferes with parking, but like even if it's cold, the grasslands, the trails are closed. So what you can do is just drive in, park in the parking area, and then just walk, 100, yards or, less, to the observation platforms on the other side, or even just stay in your car. All right. I understand that this year might not be as good as many owls seen as last year. But then the Liberty Loop, the same thing. The best viewing area, I think, is right from the parking area right on Oil City Road. So if you're saying it's cold and I'm not in the mood for, a long hike, here are two great places to see short-eared owls. And really, the parking area is the place to be. And so here's just an example of winter birding and why it's wonderful. But there's more. So let me just kind of keep on going through here. Rough-legged hawks, near and dear to my heart, and winter is the only time you're going to see them. All right, so you're not going to see that this summer. All right, unless like it's spring and there's a couple which have migrated farther south that are swinging through. Um, if you're trying to see what do they look like, it is a little harder because if you notice, there are light and dark morphs of this bird. All right, so it's a little smaller than a red tail. It kind of looks like a red tail, and that's a buteo. The tail is kind of a buteo tail, but the wings are a little bit longer than a red tail. So you might kind of confuse it for a harrier. So it's kind of in the middle. And to make your life more difficult, this is the light morph. And then in a second, I swear, this is the dark morph. So that's the same species. And it's thought that because there are these different shades, this animal, which both hunts in areas which are snow covered, and then areas where the snow is melted, having a variety of morphs in the coloration, just allow it to be flexible in its hunting behavior here. Got to great pictures of these this year, like in the past month and a half. Last year I didn't see any. So when these birds are coming from Canada and from like the Adirondacks, et cetera, if it's a really mild winter, as it has been the past 2 years, maybe more of them are able to still hunt, up farther north and don't make it quite down as far. Once again, as climate change, we're kind of studying how this affects wildlife. It's colder this year, and so this year at Liberty Loop has been a great year for the rough-legged hawks. And once again, special. This is the only time of the year that you're really going to see them. All right, so just a beautiful bird. Actually, one of them sat at the Liberty Loop. I think it's in here somewhere. Just right at the almost at the parking area, but just like right next to the path. Absolutely beautiful. So that was special. Okay. Last couple years have been better for snow geese than this year. But once again, if you have a list of things I want to go out birding in winter, this would then be a reason because these are in the Arctic during the summer. And they typically form these huge flocks. And as they, suddenly change direction, the parts of their body which are all white versus, having black on the wings can, suddenly shift and just the great color changes that you see here. So snow geese in the past couple of years, once again, if you go to that Liberty Loop area in southern Orange County, great to see those. This year, I have seen them fly over, and I think they are, here and there in Orange County, but I'm not quite sure that we have the same populations we do. Every now and then, you'll see one hanging out with Canada geese or a little bit closer. So that is a snow goose. And I mean, Orange County is great, but so are lots of places. If you ever happen to be driving like to Allentown, Route 22 is just the old cornfields there. Snow geese love it. So whenever I'm near Allentown, I almost always just see huge flocks of snow geese there in winter. So if you wanted to keep your eye out there. And there's more. Last year, during the Christmas bird count. And this past year, the Christmas bird count, I got better pictures 2 years ago rather than this year, is a bird called the horned lark. Once again, if this is one you want to see, winter's the time. You were talking about, like we're missing birds and, we're not seeing as many birds. Hey, welcome. Come on in. Birds. We're talking about birds on winter wildlife. Oh, okay. I hope you find your right spot. This is the nature talk. Yes. Okay. Well, good for you. So here you can see that when the snow covers the ground, roadways are actually great places to go birding because a lot of birds are looking on the bare ground for like grass seeds from last year, etc. So here we see this great flock of horned larks. There's even a snow bunting. We'll get back to them again in a second, by the side of the road. So once again, let's just say you're not a big fan of winter and there's snow on the ground. You can do a lot of great birding by car, especially since where the roads are salted and that's where the snow is melting to expose some dry ground. That's where you may actually be more likely to see birds than you would kind of in a deep forest here. Once again, these are special because you're not going to see horned larks this summer. You're not going to see snow buntings this summer. All right, so winter birding, it's different than birding in the summer, but it has all of these unique birds which we can only see at this time of year. So I mentioned snow buntings. Here is a little video dedicated just to them. And this is from last year. This passed about a month ago, month and a half. Not only did we observe them in the Black Dirt region of Orange County, but also at the Bashakill. So the Bashakill, and once again, it was just by the side of the road. So if you're at the Bashakill driving across Haven across the bridge there, snow buntings were by the side of the road. So if you just you go slow, maybe pull over every now and then, you can do some great birding even from your car during winter. And once again, this is the time to see snow buntings. They're going to go up to the Arctic after this. And when I say Arctic, like if you look at the north of Greenland, and then there's like a couple of islands of Canada, they're actually a little farther north of Greenland. That's where the snow buntings are breeding. They occur farther north than any other songbird in the world. All right, and so like a lot of birds go south for the winter, this is south. Orange County is south when you compare that to like northern Greenland. And so here's a snow bunting at the Bashakill. Notice it's hard to find water in winter. And so sometimes you can eat snow, although that costs more energy because now you have to use your body heat to melt the snow in order to make it into water. But that is a strategy that birds can use. So like I said, this was the side of the road. This is, my car is parked. There's the road. Here's a snow bunting, a very special bird just by the side of the road. So, it is possible to do great birding in winter. There's a couple other birds that you can, maybe find in winter, but not many other times. Here's a wren. And maybe you say, oh, I know wrens. Like in summer, we see house wrens and marsh wrens. I'll talk about Carolina wrens presently. Here's a winter wren. All right. And winter wrens, as you might guess, are here in winter. Once again, they're in Canada and farther north of us here. There are bugs if it suddenly gets warm. I'll mention them again in a second. So that was the last couple of winters have been mild. A lot of bugs came out, and these winter wrens found lots and lots of stuff to eat. Couple other birds that you might mostly see in winter. I hate to say always, I hate to be absolute, like you'll never see one of these in summer, or because every now and then someone, will, but just these, I love these birds, golden crowned kinglets, and ruby crowned kinglets. I never saw them as well as you did, where the males were flashing their ruby crest. But here, these are small birds and they never stop moving. So getting any images of these birds is lucky because I think I have video here. Because these little birds are trying to keep warm in winter. That means they have to keep eating, all right, because they have such a big surface area for their volume. They're losing heat like nobody's business. Winter is really hard for them, so they can't stop eating. So if you're trying to take a picture, waiting for them to rest, you realize, oh, they just don't do that. All right, golden crowned kinglets are a little bit smaller than sparrows, one of the few birds that are, so that's a neat way to tell them. White-breasted nuthatches are pretty common in our area and stay here during winter. Winter is a time where we're going to get more of the red-breasted nuthatches. So you may see these at feeders. There was one at Meek at the Bashakil at their feeder about a week ago. And so normally they like conifer trees. And so if you're in a conifer forest, especially like up in the Adirondacks in summer, you can find them. But in our area, they're a little harder to find during the rest of the year. So before I get into the sparrows, because I have to sell the sparrows a little bit, and I'll just check the chat. We need to get wrens of their feeder. Oh, okay. Oh, that's great, Lark. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So that's just a handful of birds. Not only can you see in winter, you can only see them in winter. From the short-eared owls to the rough-legged hawks to the winter wrens, to ones mostly in winter like the golden crown kinglets, the snow buntings, the horned larks. So birders have a list. Like here are the birds I've seen this year. If you don't go birding in winter, a bunch of the birds on your list you're not going to get, including some of the sparrows. Now, in summer, there's so many brightly colored birds. I think it's easy to kind of neglect the sparrows, and there's even a term that a lot of people use, and I've actually heard it in North America, in Central America, and in South America, of LBJs, little brown jobbers, or LBBs, little brown birds. So like I'm going to look for the brightly colored birds, and everything else is like a little brown jobber, a little brown bird. But I would say a couple things before I talk about the sparrows individually. It always bothered me that I didn't know my sparrows better. And I'm like, oh, there's a sparrow, I don't know which one, and or like it stressed me. And then I would go on winter walks where just on a winter walk, there are days where you don't see a whole lot of birds. I'm like, well, I'm seeing the sparrows now. Why don't I take a few minutes and learn my sparrows while there's not that much competition? That way I'll know them, next spring, et cetera. So, if you're walking in winter, maybe this is your sparrow time. But also, there's a lot of sparrows in our area, and some are only here in winter. So this one is called the white-crowned um, sparrow, nice black and white stripes. You might look at these two different forms and think male, female. Actually, it's mature and immature. All right. So mature birds, male and female, have the white stripes with black here, whereas it's more of an auburn and a gray in the juveniles. But once again, this is a winter bird, and once again, the best place to find them is the parking lot at the Liberty Loop. All right, that's where these videos are taken, and I've seen more of them there than anywhere else. So once again, winter can be challenging, but if you went to some of these areas and as long as the snow was plowed, if you got to park, you might see some neat birds that you wouldn't see elsewhere here. So this is the white crowned sparrow. Much more common is the white-throated sparrow. We can see them outside of winter, but winter is the time where we see most of them. All right, so that's a white crown, and I was in Chicago when I took it, so that's why it's green to see this. They wouldn't be this far south when we have green. So this then is the white-throated sparrow. Also kind of white on the head, a nice yellow spot here. One of the fascinating things about these guys is somewhere. Yeah, okay. Now this would be a whole separate talk, and I don't want to veer too far away. But white-throated sparrows, some of them have tan stripes, all right, while some of them it's more of a black and white stripe. And once again, you'd almost assume, well, that has to be a gender thing, or maybe it's a mature, immature thing. But the reality is far more complicated. So this is just the short version. There are white striped males and white striped females, and then there are tan striped males and tan striped females. The white stripe individuals almost only mate only with the tan stripe, and the tan stripe mate almost only with the white stripe. All right, so opposites attract, and you almost never find white stripe males and white stripe females together. And the genetics of it is fascinating. Once again, not probably the talk here, but not only do they look different, they act different. So they act different. The white stripe individuals, male and female, are a little more aggressive. But it affects their parenting style. So, for example, if you have a white striped male and a tan striped female, the white striped male is defending the area from nest predators, and the female does all the care of the young. If you have a white striped female and a tan striped male, then they both defend the area against nest predators and they both care for their young. So the colors go along with behavior patterns, and the young are cared for and defended either way. And it's fascinating. That's unique in this system of birds. So once again, in summer, you might see so many birds that you just kind of dismiss the sparrows, whereas in winter you realize, wow, like here's something really unique. Here's another winter sparrow, the American tree sparrow. If you want to see them, winter is your time. Okay, these are cute birds. And they have a pale breast with a little black spot on it. But you can see like they have a reddish cap, a gray face. And one of the neat ways to tell them is a bicolor bill. Right, I'll see which pictures give me the best. All right. So if you notice the top of their bill is, I'll get a good picture any second, is a dark, and the bottom of their bill is lighter. So if you're trying to distinguish between your sparrows, this bicolor bill is a great way, and especially when the sunlight hits them. So here are tree sparrows from like 3 weeks ago at 6.5 station. So winter might be a good time to practice your sparrow identification. Plus, white-crowned sparrows only in winter. White-throated sparrows, primarily in winter. American tree sparrows, only in winter. And then there's the juncos, slate-colored juncos or dark-eyed juncos. I'm sorry, that's the new name. Slate-colored, they don't use that as much. These are also sparrows. So if you're saying I'm having trouble identifying my sparrows, I'll bet you know this one. It looks different from the other ones. And winter is our best time to see them. Okay, so those are birds which you'll primarily only see in winter. Now I'd like to just talk about all of the other things you're going to see in winter, although some of these you may see during summer as well. There are waterfowl, and so this is a recent video from the past month and a half at 6.5 station. That's Long Swamp, where obviously the winter the water freezes. So frozen water is a challenge. Like, where do you get water to drink? You can only eat so much snow before the energy you're spending to melt the snow in your mouth is taking a toll. That was energy you wanted to keep warm. But luckily there is running water. And so if you need a drink, so here's a song sparrow, here's the Delaware River, and even like when a lot of it is frozen, there's still water in the middle, so that you might be able to find some water there. So this is from like a month ago. Here's a pair of bald eagles along the Delaware, because there was enough open water that they could still look for fish. Although at this time of year, maybe they're also then trying to include more carrion in their diet, because fish are a little harder to find if a lot of the water is frozen. I don't know where these couple are from. Maybe they were our birds all year long here, especially if they had a nice little territory where they were successful raising their young, they might stay. Or maybe the eagles which nested in our area last year are in the Carolinas now, and maybe these are Canada's eagles. And so even if you see eagles all year round, it's hard to know that these are exactly the same birds. Obviously, in winter, it can get so cold that even like large portions of the Delaware can freeze. So it was here's a slightly warmer time. I'll get to them in a second. These ducks called common mergansers that you could see. And so when it gets frigid cold, there's only a couple places where you can always bet that there will be running water. So where the Lackawaxen Stream comes into the Delaware River, there's Ohio Dam, the Hudson River, but it's a small handful of places. So any eagles in our area have no choice. They have to go there. So you could say it's so cold, I'm not seeing any birds, but you go to one of these 3 places and you're like, oh, there are 2 eagles. There's an eagle. Oh, there's an immature that just flew over. So even in the coldest of days, it still might be a great day to go out eagle watching, because they have no choice. They have to go to the few areas of open water that they can find. So if you were near any of those areas, then you might get really lucky with what you see. So I made this, I think last year, maybe the year before, in February. So it was around Valentine's Day. So I figured, we'll make an Eagles Valentine's Day thing. Um, so these eagles, at some point in the very near future, have to start nesting. Their eggs, their eggs are going to hatch into baby birds that have to have a wingspan between 6 and in Alaska especially, over 7 feet. All right. And they have to have their full size by the time they leave the nest in June. So from hatching to June, they have to go to get a 7-foot wingspan. That's a lot of growing. So they can't put off the nest laying too late. All right. You have a lot of growth that has to occur in a short period of time. So February is a good time to go out for eagles, especially if it's warmer. By the end of February, that's when anyone's birds which migrated south are coming back. That's when they'll start fixing up their nest. So if you look at eagles carrying branches and brush and things like that, they're fixing up last year's nest. They always add to it. And that's one of the problems, actually. The nests just get heavier and heavier and heavier. And, 10, 20 years later, it can weigh tons and actually break the tree that it's sitting in. So, end of February, early March, that's when this is going to happen. And then, by end of February, by, first part of March is when the eggs are being laid. As climate changes, one of the things we're seeing more of, unfortunately, are false springs, where all of a sudden, like late February, like all the snow melts and the ski mountains say, I don't know, should we try to make more snow? Is it worth it, or should we just call it a year? Because it looked like spring is here. And then all of a sudden, then in March, you'll get another cold spell. And one of the problems is, like for eagles, if it gets really warm at the end of February, they might say, all right, let's lay our eggs. And then if you get like a really short cold front, even if adults are sitting on the eggs, they might freeze. So that's one of the problems with trying to just navigate your seasons here. So, oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I have all these videos. I didn't know which ones to include. I just realized I probably left this one out, and I probably should. So let me go back. So something that will never happen again, but because it happened once. Yeah. There should be. Oh, okay. Maybe did I spell it out? Is it in here? The one I'm trying to get to is we went on a hike, I think it was 2 years ago. Uh, and I think it was late February. Yeah, there we go. We saw 14 eagles. Not only did we see 14 eagles, so early March. Not only did we see 14 eagles, there was like almost a dozen of them in frame, like at the same time. All right. So a lot of this would have been the ones migrating north. All right. They wouldn't have been here the whole time because it was a cold winter. Much of the water was frozen. So you wouldn't have really been able to easily support one eagle there. 14, in a frozen wetland, you wouldn't have supported. But they're coming north because, once again, as you point out, it's the time to court. All right, so you might see them doing these acrobatics as they lock talons and go hurtling towards the earth, only to let go at the last minute. You might see them fixing up their nest, and then maybe even an adult sitting on the nest as they start to lay their eggs. So once again, in my old days, I would say, it's cold in February, the beginning of March. Like, I'll wait till later. But I'm missing the eagles returning. I'm missing them starting to nest. And so winter does have its benefits with birding. So I'm sorry, I have to throw that 14 eagle day. And there is still open water. And so this is a duck known as the common merganser. Obviously, you won't see it on frozen lakes, but you'll see it still on the Delaware or the Hudson, or some of our wetlands as they start to melt. They didn't look this brilliant most of the summer, but here for ducks, once again, this is breeding time. All right, a lot of the ducks which return in in spring, they've already picked partners. So the ones in this area, they're starting to partner up. So this is the bright coloration for the males. They're trying to pick partners partners now. You get to like the end of February, if you don't have a partner, you might not get one this year. All right, so it's not as if spring is the time for uh, for finding your partners. And most of these ducks have already found it by then. So this is the time where you're going to see courtship rituals. You're going to see fights between males. And once again, because we've had mild winters and climate change, every now and then, the ice that was there melts a little bit, and then you'll get, more ducks here, some black ducks included, um, coming. Coming by. Now, I apologize. There's some videos. What I'm about to say, I think that's like a video that I'm almost about to make. Early January was cold. All right. Everything was frozen. Mid-January, things melted, and like in Goshen, I saw 60 mallards. Like it was mostly still ice, but there was enough free water that there was a lot of mallards. But then even I saw a green-winged teal and American widgeon. So ducks that I didn't expect to see, all of a sudden in the middle of January, there was this brief moment. So would get to see some of those. In the middle of January, the Delaware unfroze. It was frozen in the beginning, it was frozen at the end. All right, but it was unfrozen in the middle. Stupid me, I said, let's go out kayaking on the Delaware, which, maybe not the smartest thing. But it was 40, so it wasn't the dumbest thing either. And I saw a duck I'd never seen before, a long-tailed duck. So once again, I'm not saying kayaking on the Delaware in January is a good birding experience, but winter is a time to see birds you're not going to see other times of year. All right, so this is normally by the coast. It's more of a saltwater bird, but in warmer months it's farther north. All right, so I'd never seen this duck before, and once again, birding in winter gave me a view that I wouldn't have otherwise uh, seen. Okay. Birds are going to behave differently. All right, water is good because. All right, I just want to. Somewhere I'll get to the Canada geese. So Canada geese, if the ice melts, you can get a lot of ducks there. But even if the ice doesn't melt or doesn't always melt, there's like you could just look out and you can say like, wow, there are just hundreds and hundreds of geese here, because they have to stay somewhere, and predators are out. So I'll show you videos here. Like if we have trail cameras going, the trail cameras at our sanctuaries this month have gotten coyote, have gotten fox, have gotten bobcats, and so uh, uh, geese are going to try to make use of the middle of a frozen wetland because maybe they can see predators from a ways away, but predators can now walk on the ice, and so now maybe predators which couldn't access geese on in the middle of unfrozen water can now prey uh, um, on waterfowl there. So going to shift to some other bird groups, but all this neat stuff is going on in winter, a little bit different than summer, but a few other things. The woodpeckers, they have the advantage in that they can still eat bugs even though it's winter, because there are bugs in winter. It's just they're in different places. And rotting wood has bugs. Not only that, it has like pupal cases of like beetle larvae that are going to, eclose the spring. So if you can get into rotting wood, then you can still eat insects even though it's winter. And so there are a lot of woodpeckers which will probably stay year round and not migrate, including the largest one, the pileated woodpecker. And this has been a good year for pileated woodpeckers. So this is at the Bashakil, I believe here. Now, look at what it's doing. Not only is it eating insects, but it's also going after some of these poison ivy berries. Because once again, come winter, birds may behave a little differently. So they might look a little different, but they also might behave a little differently, incorporating more plant material into their diets than they otherwise would. Okay. And then we have other woodpeckers like downies and hairy woodpeckers, etc. We have bluebirds. All right, bluebirds stay in our area in winter. Couple things though, you might not know that because just to be clear, the males, when they're courting, the mature males, they're going to have that bright blue coloration. But immature males and females, not quite as bright. So you might actually see, like that's a female or an immature male. You might see a bluebird and not know it. It would be the auburn on the chest that would give a female away because her head can be a little bit grayer. Um, you saw some of them eating berries. And so, your comment earlier about like, birds being harder to see. I 100% agree. Here's a female here. But if you found an area that was like rich in berries, like I'll go on a winter walk and see nothing, 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 nothing. But all of a sudden I'll get to this one patch and there's just everything's a buzz with activity. There's a whole bunch of things because this region is rich in berries or whatever. About a month ago, I saw a dozen bluebirds by the Delaware in this one little patch. So whatever was special about that habitat, they were doing great there. But then, the rest of the time, I'm not seeing many birds at all elsewhere. So a lot of birds are still in our area. They just might not be as obvious um, uh, in um, in places for you to recognize. It's February now, so that makes me think of one thing with bluebirds. It's time to clean out the bluebird houses because maybe these are Canada's bluebirds. Maybe they are on their way north. But it is possible these are ours that are going to breed here this year. And that now, February, is when they're starting to pair up and they're starting to pick their nesting sites. And I'll tell you why we have to clean them out in a second. But once again, it's the end of February. But for them, this is the beginning of spring. They're pairing up, they're finding their partners, and they're going to start building their nesting material. I'll show you their nest houses in a little bit. Bluebirds are eating plant material in winter, and lots of birds can. All right, so cedar waxwings. I was at the Bashkill about a month ago. I saw like 18 of these. All right, oh, beautiful, beautiful birds, and you'll see why, because in the area you'll see how many berries there are. All right, so there aren't many birds that can eat only berries if they have to. Cedar waxwings would be one, Baltimore Orioles would be a second one. And so if you're in an area where it's rich in berries, cedar waxwings are just beautiful birds. And not only can you see them, you're like, hey, there's one big berry bush and they're all hanging out there. And so not only can you see them, but you can get a chance to observe a whole bunch of these great birds. I do have a song on this where one danger is these are old fruits. So if they're eating fruit in winter, all right, this is not new fruit. This is old fruit. This is fruit from October, which means that on warm days, it ferments. So there's alcohol in that fruit. Now, that's one of the reasons that most birds can't live just on fruits because it's hard. In fact, you can get intoxicated. And one of the things, cedar waxwing, they just have really big livers to help them deal with the excess alcohol that they ingest. But it's still a challenge. All right, there are still drunk birds. The name of my song is Drunk Birds, that'll fall off branches or fly into things. Because if you're eating fruits in winter, or even just regular old fruits, like if you're eating, just apples which have fallen, they start to ferment. And if you're an animal, you are ingesting alcohol. We were on a walk a couple of weeks ago, and we saw this. So if you're a bird watcher, a lot of times you've said, "Oh, I've seen my last warbler for the year. I'll have to wait till next spring." But there are some warblers which can live on fruit. Most can't. Most have to eat bugs. But a couple can vary their diet a little more. And this is a yellow-rumped warbler. Most of us are thinking, "Oh, I'm going to have to wait till April till I see that." But there actually are a couple which are hanging out in our area all winter, and here you can see it eating some berries. So great bird here in winter. All right. Well, a lot of people would say like, "Oh, I'm not going to go birding till spring, so I can see my warblers." You might actually get a chance to see them. I'm sorry. I think so. They can eat waxy fruits as well, like bayberry and other things as well. As it gets warmer, we're seeing ranges shift. We're seeing more mockingbirds than we used to. Mockingbirds used to never spend their winter here, but now it's not that unusual to see a mockingbird. Winters aren't as harsh as they used to be. I know it seems harsh. They used to be harsher. All right. Like I know that seems like a lot of snow, but I'm sure a lot of us remember like I can remember more snow than that. Especially the past couple years, some of the warmest Januaries on record. The birds are responding. We see more Carolina wrens in our area over winter than we used to. Black vultures used to never be in our area. Now, not only can they be found in Orange County, you can see them you can see them during winter. Right. So like Warwick has a bunch of them, that hang out throughout winter. I saw one flying over 6.5 um, a week ago. And so it is, as climate shifts, that's one of the things that Audubon and other groups are measuring. How are birds responding? Like we have all these maps, like this is where you can find these birds, but the ranges are shifting. Carolina wrens, their name gives it away. They were a southern bird. All right. So we would only see them in summer. Right, the Carolinas would be a good place to see them. But winters have been mild. More and more, we can find them here in uh, in winter. Okay. Here's another winter bird that we can see all through year round called a brown creeper. All right. It kind of hugs the trunks of trees as it digs in crevices for bugs. And at some point, I want to shift and talk about other things other than birds. But this was from, I think, like 3 days ago. So the past couple winters have looked like this, all right, where like there's a little bit of snow on the ground, and these turkeys, all right, they can then like look for food, or as they scrounge around in the grass. But obviously, what's a ground living bird to do when there's a foot of snow? Be in the trees. So when you're going birding, look up. There might be a flock of turkeys over your head. All right. So just I'm driving down the road near my house is like a half a mile away from here, and I was doing a bird count for Audubon. I was looking for bluebirds, and I noticed stuff up in trees. I'm like, those are turkeys, and there's a dozen of them, because this is what they want. All right. But should you get a severe winter, all right, let me just go back. All right. There's a whole bunch of them. Look, all those dark spots, those are turkeys in the roost. Because obviously they can't look for food on the ground, but there are predators that can. So they'll just sit up in the trees to a much greater degree. So birds you can still see in winter, but they're acting a little bit different. One of the things that makes winter neat, you're more likely to see a bunch of birds in trees. So they're a kind of fowl. On our Christmas bird count, we saw a pheasant. This is the male pheasant, but when we did a Christmas bird count in late December, we saw female pheasant in the Black Dirt regions of Orange County. So that's another bird which is with us as well. So in fairness, I'd like to keep on moving because, Orange County has such great wildlife. And I always apologize when I say this. I have traveled and I love the wildlife you find in other areas. But a lot of areas make me appreciate Orange County. We really do have a great diversity. Like you go out west, you go to a small island in the Caribbean. After a while, you've seen most of the birds you're going to see. All right. Like they're great because they're different birds. Whereas we just have a great variety um, here. And so I'm going to move on other than birds. But here, once again, here's the starlings. They don't do this in summer. All right. So this formation of these great um, these great murmurations, that's a winter thing. So there are rodents in winter. Look, there's a rabbit. All right. So rabbits are still coming out. Here, you can see why I have to clean out the bluebird houses in February, because very often mice have taken over. All right. And if you want the bluebirds to, in the end of February, to feel like this is a good place to raise a family, getting rid of the mice is important. I've got more videos of those. So there are rodents, but then look, there's Canada geese on the ice. There's turkeys. So it shouldn't be a surprise that we see bobcat in Orange County. So this is 10, 15 minutes from here at 6.5 station. I've got video coming up from the past month where you can see bobcat. There's a red fox. We have coyotes. So we can see lots of carnivores in winter. They are still active. Okay. Deer certainly are. All right. Because notice as winter starts, they still have their antlers. All right, because they're still males are fighting with each other for the privilege of mating. It won't be until late winter into early spring that they're dropping their antlers because now the does are pregnant and So if you want to see, bucks with their antlers, winter is a good time to do that. Notice they have a darker brown coat. Deer have two coats over the course of the year, so their winter coat is warmer than their summer coat is. In the past year, Audubon sanctuaries have had lots of coyotes, including these. These were from trail cameras about 2 months ago. And so I always like it when the animals stop right in front of the trail camera instead of running across. But here's different sanctuaries and different coyotes. They're here in summer, all right? But in winter, they're still out and about because they're warm-blooded. They're still feeding on those things. Here are coyotes near Warwick here. And sometimes you don't get to see them during the day, but you do find their footprints. So just like winter might be a time to practice your sparrows, maybe winter's the time to practice your footprints. All right. In that, you can practice footprints in whatchamacallit, in warmer months because there are footprints in mud. But if you're not seeing much in the wild during winter, maybe this is a footprint time. So for example, coyote versus fox. All right, how does one tell the difference? If you see a bunch of them traveling together, seemingly, coyotes. If they're a little bit bigger, coyotes. Coyotes, 3 inches, maybe a bit more, whereas red fox are typically 2 to 2.5 inches. But here's something: if you look at these lateral toe prints, notice if I were to draw a line, it would cross the bottom of these toes. Whereas with a fox, if you drew that line, it could pass through nothing but space. All right. So that there's this negative space in between the two middle digits and the two lateral digits. So little things like that. Like once you do it once, you're like, oh, okay. That helps me distinguish between those. But once again, winter might be a time in the snow to practice your footprint identification. Right. So there's still cottontails. And getting back to the cleaning out of the bluebird houses. Okay. So sometimes there's not much in there, but sometimes you have to, just kind of, I use an ice scraper, and I have gloves, and I also then, it's good if you can kind of rubber band your sleeve, because as these mice come out, they'll run up your arm, they'll like run into your sleeve. So just, be prepared. Just make sure that they can't get inside. But so this would be the reason then to clean out those bluebird houses. But getting back to the owls and the harrier hawks, obviously these mice come out every night and they're eating grass seeds and they're eating plant vegetation. So that's why the owls are out and that's why the hawks are out, because there's still rodents out in winter. And so then there are the carnivores that can eat them as well. Okay, so this I just kind of put together from the trail camera stuff. So this is from the past month at a couple of sanctuaries in Orange County. We're starting off with Goshen. So you can see there's coyotes. All right, so we still got coyotes running around at night, even in winter. I'll just fast forward a little bit. There's more coyotes. We have red foxes. So here's red foxes in the past month running around. More red foxes. Somewhere we'll see the bobcat. There's red foxes. Okay, so here's the bobcat in Goshen. Notice the ice. This must have been middle of January because the ice is like kind of breaking a little bit, but you can see it running around. If you have a stream, all right, that's running, then you might find raccoons. And notice it's walking in the water because what it wants to do is to step on a frog or maybe a turtle or something that then it can eat. So even though it's cold water, obviously in December, what it's hoping to do is to feel movement as it steps. Right. So I'm just going to start going through some of the other things, but I've got lots of trail cam videos. I have a YouTube channel, if you don't know, at Dr. Jan 41, DRJAHN 41, where all of these videos are. And so, if this was fast and you said, oh, it would be great to go through this again, like the footprints. I've got a couple of videos on like the different types of footprints and the different like toes that you'll see and et cetera, the grasping, feet of opossums and the like. So if you found that helpful, there's more here. Once again, there are winter walks where I'm a little bored. I'm not seeing as much wildlife as I might see in summer. So now I'll say, oh, I'll take the time and I'm going to look a little more closely at the footprints. I'm like, oh yeah, look at the, the weird raccoon hind foot there. All right. Or, oh, skunks are a little bit different because you can count the number of toes. All right. That was a little, um, I think a mink that went by. But you can, so these have 5 toes. A lot of the things will have 4 toes, etc. All right, so you can practice all of those, uh, things. Just to kind of wrap up, there's things that we don't usually see, but they are still around, like frogs, salamanders, and turtles. They're there. They don't migrate south. So if that's a lake, they're there. You just don't see them. They're at the bottom, most of them. So frogs, turtles, most of them, they're going to be at the bottom where they're just kind of breathing in oxygen in the frozen water. Right? In fact, turtles have a funny thing. They call it cloacal respiration, in which they're essentially breathing through their butts, okay, where they open their cloaca and are then taking oxygen out of the cold water and getting it into their bodies um, that way. Okay. Some frogs are a little bit different where they can actually freeze solid. Right. So before I get to them, toads just dig burrows. But then there are things like wood frogs. Wood frogs can freeze solid. I've never done it, but you can take a wood frog. Everyone says so. Put it in your freezer, freeze it solid, bring it out, and then it thaws and hops away. And it's okay. That's what they do in winter. They freeze solid. All right. Peepers do as well. And the gray tree frogs, and wood frogs, gray tree frogs, and peepers can do that. They have like antifreeze proteins in their blood. So there are a lot of things that are here in winter. You're just not going to see them as often. The snakes, they are in their burrows underneath. But if you hear a warm day, they still need to drink. You might see a snake in the middle of winter. If it's a warmer January day, it comes out to get something to drink and then it goes back into its burrow. They act differently. So in winter, you might actually get like 3 species in the same burrow. So you might get copperheads, rattlesnakes, and a black rat snake that are not poisonous, just hanging out for warmth. And they're not going to do that in summer, hang out together, but in winter, that's not an uncommon thing to find different species together. And if you wanted to go crazy, I'll start to wrap up. If you wanted to go crazy, even in frozen water, if you were to get like a little fish net that you get at Walmart for $2 and just start scooping up here, you'll say, there's algae. There's still photosynthesis going on because sunlight does get through thin ice. All right. So here we have photosynthetic plants, producing oxygen. As long as you have them, then you got water bugs that can eat them. And if so you were to start scooping up, you'd find water bugs going on here. And obviously the fish haven't migrated. They're in the frozen pond. Even though the surface is frozen, there's whole food chains going on. The algae are doing photosynthesis. The water bugs are eating the algae and they're decomposing the dead leaves. And then the fish are eating those. The turtles might eat the fish, etc. So there's still a lot going on. And plants on land, a lot of them are done for the year, but not necessarily. All right, we've got plants, all right, that will shed some of their leaves, but in winter keep a lot, like rhododendron, mountain laurel. All right, they'll stay green all throughout year. And this is a great place to go birding. Like right now it's freezing cold. So if you're a bird, you want to shelter somewhere. So if you know of a place, all right, that has a lot of rhododendrons or a lot of mountain laurels that have their leaves, go birding there. All right, because that's like almost the only place I ever see ruffed grouse. Ruffed grouse, we're worried about them. Their numbers are really dropping. But in winter, if you can find like an area like this, ruffed grouse, that'll be where you find them. They're using shelter from the cold. Elsewhere on land, all right, sometimes even if there's snow, all right, the base of the trees is exposed or the rocks are exposed, and you'll say, oh, look, here's moss. There are ferns that stay green all year round. There are some trees that do photosynthesis in their bark. So black birch, notice it has kind of a greenish hue. Striped maple, greenish hue. All right, so there are green trees, all right, where the bark is really thin. And they can actually do photosynthesis there, even though they've dropped their leaves. Obviously, we have pine trees which have dropped their leaves. And so if you got Plants, which have fruits from last year, which are still doing some photosynthesis in their green stems, you might find some animals eating all of that, like porcupines. All right, so here's a porcupine from the Bashakil about a month and a half ago. It's winter, but it can find some stuff to eat. So as I start to wrap up, and once again, I hate to be insulting, but like the few times I've gone out west, beautiful, beautiful to go out west. But then after a little while, you're like, I'm a tiny bit bored. You come back here, and it is such a species-rich area. And if you ever travel, like just notice that, and I think you'll appreciate just like, wow, we have a great amount of life. If you go to like the Virgin Islands, beautiful, but these small islands, they don't have a lot of birds. Or I mean, there's great birds, all right, but not as diverse as here. This is really special at any time of year, including winter. So even in winter, there's just great wildlife to see, although maybe you have to go looking for it a little bit different. Maybe it's actually easier, like a flock of turkeys in the tree, like a half a mile from my house, by the road. All right. Usually it's harder to see turkeys because they hear you walk into the woods, they run away. So it was a little easier to see them. When I go to Milford Beach along the Delaware, they plow it. So there's a lot of bare ground. All right. And that's where I saw like a dozen bluebirds like 3 weeks ago. That's where you find a lot of sparrows. So, there are great birds that you might see that actually might be easier to see. All right, you park at the parking area of the Liberty Loop, and you might say, "Oh, there's the white-crowned sparrows," just like he said. There's the short-eared owls. You park into the area at the Shawangunk grasslands, and there's the harrier hawk and the short-eared owls there. So winters, there's a lot of birds you won't see because they've flown south. It's cold, and that's certainly a limiting factor. But if you dress warm, and once again, I hate to say this, but like this is always, oh, did I just make that red mark? And I don't know how. Yeah. So, good we're ending because I don't know how to make that go. Um, this took me so long to figure out. When I went skiing, I would dress for skiing. I'd get hand warmers, I'd, wear thermals and a snow pants or whatever. But then I'd go bird watching in jeans and I'd be like, oh, this sucks, it's freezing or whatever. And then it took me, it's like, well, just dress like you do when you go skiing. All right. So like if you like winter or anything, like you know how to dress for that. Just if you're going to go out bird watching, it's going to be cold. Just hand warmers and your thick gloves, and then you'll be fine. And you can hopefully enjoy the great winter wildlife. So that then is our little discussion on just what a great area we live in and what great wildlife. And not only even in winter, but then there's so many things that you only see in winter. So it's really a time that I recommend that you get out. And if you'd like any help getting out, like I said, there's all of these great organizations, whether it be Audubon, the Bashakil, there's different Audubon societies, there's Friends Group, etc. And especially once it starts getting a little warmer, they'll have more frequent walks. Oh, how do I take pics with my heavy gloves on? I don't. But then like I play guitar, but actually like sometimes like in winter I'm like, oh, like my hands are like stiff because I've been like taking my gloves off to manually focus because the golden crown kinglets are hiding in the branches, and every time you do autofocus, it focuses on the branch in front of the kinglet or behind the kinglet. So that's a great question, Lark. Yeah, unfortunately, if you're going to do camera work, you often do have to take your gloves off in the bitter cold. And like I said, my fingers complain about it the next day. So yeah, that is an excellent point. Good safety tip. Thank you so much for coming. And throughout, I record all of these and I'll post the recordings. If anyone needs a place, you can reach Dorothy Sheff. You can reach myself at walterjan@sunyorange.edu. Happy to send you the playlist for it. Next week, I believe, bugs. All right, we're looking at the world of insects. And one of the things just on insects, if you were to look at species of living things on Earth, 4 insect groups: the beetles, the wasps, the flies, and the moths. Those 4 outnumber all other groups. So if you want to study life on Earth, if you study those 4 groups of insects, you've studied more than half of the known species. So insects, an amazing group. So that'll be our discussion next time. And soon we'll be talking about nesting bald eagles, etc. Because like I said, we're getting to that time. If anyone had any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. Other than that, thank you so very much for coming, and we'll hope to see you soon. And if you're here, people at home, this applies to you next time I see you, if you want to come next week. If anyone would like to take a calendar, donations are welcome, but you don't have to. Welcome to take either the Bashakil Catskill or the Oakcast ones. There's also the calendars for the series of talks this spring. Thank you so much for coming. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We just hit the chats. Okay. Thank you everyone for coming. Oh, is Galapagos Island next week? I'm sorry. Galapagos Island is next week. Thank you. I appreciate it. The schedules are on the table, 2 tables away, and I realized, oh, okay. Thank you. Galapagos Island is next week, and then bugs after that. Thank you so very much. I apologize. Yes. They fly through here during migration. I haven't seen many this year, but certain places are good for them, like the Hudson. All right, they're more of a diving duck that likes, sometimes they call them sea ducks. So if you live near the Great Lakes or like the ocean or like, you know, the Hudson as it gets near the ocean, that would be, so I'll bet you if you went to like Newburgh area, you have a shot at seeing a bufflehead, but right now here, no.
I think that on Martha's Vineyard on the pond,
Hmm.
and I saw water pond.
Yeah. I love those. I did not see many this. I don't know. I don't know if I saw any this year, which is yeah, unusual.
And the osprey always come third March.
Oh, okay. 3rd week of March. Good to know. Good to know. Have a wonderful night, everybody. Thank you for coming. Ooh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And osprey.
Very interesting.
Thanks, Walter.
Thank you. And thank you for your latest thing that'll go in the next newsletter. You're late. Oh no, but we'd love to highlight all the great birds and birding that you do. So I want to stop recording.
During the storm, the sun